Dear viewers, welcome to this episode of Your Life, Your Money. Today I have come to you with a new concept in personal finance. It's known as the revolving fund. If you are able to build a revolving fund, it can solve many of the problems that could be there in the life of many people, like excessive use of credit cards, paying off a lot of interest. These can be solved if you are able to build a revolving fund. This is NRI Money Clinic for you, and I am Dr. Chandrakant Bhatt, your financial guide for a happy living.
NRI Money Clinic. No hype, just the right advice.
Expenses are a problematic area for a lot of people. Suddenly, from nowhere, the expense will emerge. For example, a fridge will give up and it doesn't function. A TV doesn't function. Sometimes you lose a mobile. Sometimes in some months you have very high level of expenses. In some months you may not have expenses at all. The large expenses, unexpectedly, when it comes in front of you, people will get unnerved and do not know what to do about it. How do people solve it? Simple. They use their credit card, they take a personal loan, end up paying an EMI. EMI means you have to pay the principal, you have to pay the interest. Apart from paying for the product, you will also be ending up paying the interest for the bank, which in other means to say will construct your life. How can we solve this particular problem? I don't have the money to buy. Sometimes the things that I have to buy, this is a large enough expense, it's a one-off expense. It came from nowhere, it's an unexpected expense. How to solve this problem? The answer to this problem lies in building a revolving fund. A revolving fund, by its name, means you build a pool of funds with an idea that this will be spent on certain specific expenses which happen at specific points of time. Let's look at this thing a little bit in detail. For example, now, let's say that the fridge is not working and suddenly your wife says that we have a problem on hand. I can't keep anything in the fridge, and suddenly you need to buy a fridge. You had an old fridge and now you have grown up and your salaries have improved and you have moved up the lifestyle, and it costs a higher amount of money to buy that fridge. How do you do this? If you have the money with you, you can go and buy. If you don't have, in many cases people will not have the requisite amount of money. The normal route people take is they'll go to an electronic store and check what offers are available on which credit card and how they can take it against EMI. This is what people do. Can we do it in a different way? When you take a personal loan or when you take a credit card loan, how do you pay for it? You pay for it in monthly equated installments. When you pay, there is a principal and there is an interest. What if we completely reverse this whole equation? Instead of paying after you buy that gadget or any item that you want to buy, how about prepaying for it? If you decide that I need to have a fridge 1 year down the line or 2 years down the line, is it not possible for you to build a revolving fund and pay every month into a pool of funds, and whenever that incidents happen, you can use the money which is there in the revolving fund to buy that gadget? Now let us look at this particular issue a little bit more in detail. Now, if we create a revolving fund, what all the things that can be funded from a revolving fund? A revolving fund cannot solve some of the problems which are repetitive in nature. For example, if you have to fill petrol to your vehicle, which is repetitive in nature, that cannot be solved by a revolving fund. Your grocery purchase, your monthly rentals, these things cannot be solved by a revolving fund. For a revolving fund to solve the particular problem, it should be a one-off event. For example, you have to buy a car, or you have to buy a TV or a mobile phone, or one-off event like you have to pay an insurance premium once in a year. Anything which is one-off, definitive, it requires a larger amount of money in one single stroke. Those are the ones which can be transferred to a revolving fund and planned, and you can solve that particular problem. Let's look at one case scenario now. Let's say that you have to pay your children's school fees every June, and let's assume that you have to pay 60,000 rupees or its equivalent as the fee that you have to pay. So you have an option to take a personal loan in the month of June and pay this fees and pay it over as an EMI over next 1 year or so. Or you can decide to start a revolving fund where you put 5,000 every month, and over 12 months it becomes 60,000, and when your children have to go to school and you have to pay the fees, you don't have to depend on a personal loan or a credit card loan to pay for this. So like this, you can take any expenses which are one-off in nature, large in nature, it will happen at a definitive point of time, that can be solved using a revolving fund. Likewise, replacements. See, for example, the TV, fridge, mobile phone, the car, what I said, you have to buy, but there is no definitive date, but it costs a lots of money. When it will happen, you do not know. It could be an unexpected event. For example, you think that your fridge will last 10 years and suddenly after 5 years, the fridge may become useless and you may have to rebuy that. In such cases, if you maintain a revolving fund, such expenses can be put on the revolving fund and you can solve that particular problem. So to remember here is what is repetitive, what is monthly cannot be put on the revolving fund, what is one-off, definitive spending, those can be put on the revolving fund. Now let us look at how to build a revolving fund. I will say 3 methods for you to build a revolving fund, but only one method is the correct method. But sometimes what happens is that method may be not possible for you to implement. So you have to start a revolving fund. Then let us look at method 2 and method 3 later on. Method 1 is identify all the things which have to be funded using a revolving fund. As I said, these should be the ones where the expenses will happen at a definite point of time, like the school fees, insurance premium policies, or anything that you have planned that I have to buy a refrigerator or a mixer or a grinder or anything that of sort can be put there. So you have to calculate. Now school fees, let's say it happens at yearly interval, 60,000 rupees and divided by 12 months. So you need to put 5,000 on the revolving fund for the school fees every month. Let's take the case of a fridge. Let's assume that the fridge costs you 50,000 rupees and the fridge will have a life of, let's assume, 5 years. That means it costs 10,000 per year divided by 12. Whatever is the amount every month, you again calculate. Like this, you calculate each and every item which you feel might impact you in case if you have to replace it for whatever the reason. It could be a normal wear and tear, or it could be just that you want to buy a new brand for it, or you have got tired of seeing the same thing. There is a new brand which has come in, you have to buy. You calculate the value, divide the effective lifespan of that, calculate monthly amount and put it on a side. So you add up all the things. Suppose you want to put car also on a revolving fund. The way you have to follow is, let's assume that you have bought a 15 lakh worth of car and you intend to replace it 5 years from now. So that means after 5 years you have to buy a new car. This 15 lakh car at the time of replacing 5 years later could have a salvage value of, let's say, 3 lakh rupees. So you remove the 3 lakh and 12 lakh has to be provided over 5 years. 5 years divided by 12 months, the figure what you get is something what you have to put it on the revolving fund every month. So you add up all the things that you have to put it on that. See, for NRIs, particularly those guys who live in the Gulf, have a major commitment every 1 year or every 2 years, coming back to the home country, visiting the parents, spending time, expenses here. Even that can be put on a revolving fund. Let's say that your India visits cost you 5 lakh rupees and you come once in 2 years to India. You can decide 5 lakh divided by 12 is the amount monthly provision you have to make and put it on the revolving fund. So add up all these things. That will tell you how much is the revolving fund you have to contribute from your salaries, business income every month, and keep putting it on the revolving fund. If you provide for this, all these things, then you will never have a surprise, and whenever you need to replace or make payment for this, you can withdraw from the revolving fund and pay for it. You don't have to resort for credit cards. You don't have to take a personal loan. The method 2 is an alternative method where you don't have the requisite amount of money. Many people have this credit card problems. They don't have enough resources. What shall I do? But I am impressed with the concept of revolving fund. I want to start. How do I do it? The simple is, yes, your calculations show in the method 1 that you have to provide for 50,000 every month, but I cannot afford 50,000. What shall I do? The best is do that method 1, know how much money you have to put in, but you can't afford it now, but at least start with some amount of money, maybe 25,000 every month, 30,000 every month, 15,000 every month, depending on your budgetary constraint. You start with it, and at least to that extent, it will reduce your burden over a period of time. When you are done with your EMIs, or when you have got a bonus, or whenever you have other resources, maybe something has matured, your FDs have matured, move that money from those resources into the revolving fund to catch up with the shortfall. That is method 2. The method 3 is something that beginners can do it. For example, somebody who has newly come into the job market, you don't have a clarity about how much money I have to maintain, what I need, how much it might cost. You do not know. But building a revolving fund with as little as 5,000 or whatever the amount of money will help you to buy those things that you need at periodical intervals of time if a situation were to develop. So these are the three methods by which you can build a revolving fund, and that would be very, very handy. In the personal financial space, there is another concept called emergency funds. You may get a doubt, is revolving fund same as an emergency fund? The answer is no. These two are completely different. A revolving fund is a consumption fund. You have at some point of time an incidence which requires this money to be spent. It is guaranteed that you will spend this money. You are just doing a pre-EMI. Instead of paying the EMIs at post-purchase, you are making a provision, building the funds and consuming this money. So it's a consumption fund. An emergency fund, on the other side, is a contingency fund. Your revolving fund is a consumption budget and your emergency fund is a contingency budget. You don't dip into your emergency fund unless the situation develops to that extent. For example, somebody loses job, somebody wants to sit at home, pursue their studies. There is no cash flow. At that point of time, you dip into your emergency funds. You don't dip into your emergency funds to buy these gadgets and the regular expenses that come in your life at periodical intervals of time. Hope I am very clear the difference between a revolving fund and an emergency fund. Revolving fund is a consumption budget and emergency fund is a contingency budget. Now let us look at the advantages and disadvantages of maintaining a revolving fund. Revolving fund has several advantages. The first advantage is you know exactly what you are going to buy and when you are going to buy, and you know your budget and you prepare for it. Your today's needs can be pushed to the future and you can build the funds and then you can buy. So this will help you to come out of that vicious cycle of using the credit cards or taking a personal loan for consumption purpose. This is the biggest advantage. It instills a method of disciplined purchases in your life. It is not going to be something very erratic. So you prepare for it, you follow a disciplined approach, you save and then buy. This is very good. In the case of credit card or in the case of personal loan, you take these loans and you pay with the principal and interest. If you are a salaried person, remember every payment of interest constricts your life. On the contrary, if you maintain a revolving fund, the revolving fund also earns you interest. That means the amount of money you require for your consumption purpose comes down, because in the interim, these funds will be earning some interest for you or some returns for you, which will reduce your burden. In fact, when you maintain a revolving fund, you can have comfortable life. You can sleep peacefully. You will not be worried about where will the money come from. How will I manage an exigency? If a phone were to not work or if you were to lose, you have built a pool of funds to go and buy the replacement for that. Sometimes what happens is you will experience exigencies in life. For example, your fridge was supposed to last for, let's say, 10 years and suddenly you see the fridge is not working after 5 years. Since you have maintained an overall revolving fund, you can still dip into your revolving fund and replace that fridge. The same case with each and every item that comes in. Since revolving fund is going to be a large enough fund, if there were to be an exigencies, the routine exigencies can be easily managed with the help of the revolving fund. You don't use the revolving fund monies for each and everything on a daily basis. So if one comes earlier or if something does not happen, you can roll over this revolving fund for a few more years. You can carry and you can earn interest from that. That would be very helpful to you. These are the benefits of revolving fund. Are there any disadvantages in maintaining the revolving fund? Honestly speaking, there is not much of a disadvantage in maintaining a revolving fund. The only problem I would say or caution here is there are a lot of people who get itchy when they see that they have a large amount of money stored for whatever that purpose they have, and they come in kind of a situation where they go for some exhibition, see some gadget, and they feel like using this money and buy that and think, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. So you may develop that itchy feeling to spend this and it can become irrational. That's the only disadvantage when you maintain a revolving fund. When you build your revolving fund, where to park this money? It is similar like emergency fund. It should be liquid in nature. it should be less volatile, and it should be easily accessible to you. You can park your revolving fund in any bank account. It could be a savings bank account. You can keep it in the mutual funds like a liquid fund or a low duration fund or a conservative equity fund or a multi-asset fund which is less volatile. Anything which is less volatile, anything which is liquid in nature, you can use it. Don't hold this money in gold thinking that the gold will make you money. That's not the thing. It should be liquid in nature. A simple bank account is perfectly fine. That is where you have to hold your monies which belong to the revolving fund. Dear viewers, hope the concept of revolving fund which I discussed today helped you to manage your finances in a better way, reduce your dependence on credit card or personal loan. If it did give you a direction to manage your finances in a different way, please do give me a thumbs up. If you are a person who is watching my channel for the first time, or if you are yet to subscribe for the channel, please hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon. Do not forget to share these videos with your near and dear ones, friends and relatives, and on all the WhatsApp groups on which you are connected with. Thank you very much for watching this episode on NRI Money Clinic. I shall be back with you with yet another episode of Your Life, Your Money next Friday. Till then, stay safe. Jai Hind.
Press the bell icon for more details and subscribe our channel.